Aloha and welcome everyone, and welcome to day two of our 2025 series, Japanese Online Language Pedagogy, as part of our OLP Summer Workshop. We are so happy to have you with us and returning with us. My name is Sarah Boutin. I am very honored to be serving as your facilitator for this series. And I believe this is my 8th year of facilitating the online language pedagogy workshops. I absolutely love this aspect of what I do. And while I am also a Japanese teacher, it's a lot of fun to interact with all of you. So thank you all for being here. And to recap, the reason why we decided to focus on Japanese this year is that we kind of wanted to take the series in the direction of focusing on some of the less commonly taught languages to really get into the meat of teaching these languages online. I also want to send a very warm mahalo to all of our friends at NFLRC at the University of Hawaii at Manoa for making this series possible. There's so much fantastic collaboration between the panelists and the audience. So thank you all so much for doing this. And this series is sponsored by the U.S. Department of Education, but please note that the Department of Education is not endorsing or vetting anything shared during our presentation, and the opinions that are expressed during the webinar are the opinions of the panelists and not those of the Department of Education. I would like to quickly take everyone out on a little field trip to our OLP website. So if I could just share my screen with you for a moment, because I wanted to share that we've got a few new things posted for you. Just like before, we've got the dates and times. So if you are joining from a different time zone than, say, the East Coast, you can see all of the different time zones that are available. So you can figure out what time we have our sessions based on what's written here. And we also have the archive link available here from our session on Monday. If you couldn't make the session on Monday, don't worry. You can go back and watch this at any time or feel free to rewatch anything. And then we will continue to add our recordings here as we go on in our series. You can see all the cute little pictures of our panelists. And I also wanted to point out this great new shared resource links. It's such a treasure trove of great things to check out. So a huge thank you to our panelists from Monday and those who participated in the chats and just adding their own thoughts. You can see that there are a lot of great resources to check out. So please feel free to go to these, bookmark them, play with them, experiment, and see what you enjoy from your own for your own class. So a lot of great resources there for you, and we are happy to continue to add to this as we go on in our series. And during our time today, please be sure to share your own thoughts, questions, and opinions in the chat. We will continue to monitor the chat as the sessions go on. Generally, the format we use is for the first hour and 30 minutes, we have our conversation with our panelists. And then toward the last 15 minutes of our session, we will address questions, comments that come into the chat, and we will take the conversation from there. So now I would like to turn things over to our panelists, and I want to invite our newer panelists who weren't joining us on our session on Monday. We'll start with Nozoki Sensei. If you could please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background, and I'm curious to know what, if anything, inspired you to become a Japanese teacher.
Hi, thank you. Hi, everyone, my name is Saori Nozaki. Currently, I'm teaching at Yale University. I'm just finishing my second year at there. But prior to there, I taught at other small liberal arts colleges and also taught Japanese as a graduate teaching assistant at Ohio State University and other school as well. So, mostly my teaching is in person, like my university taught like a kind of a want us to teach in person. So after the COVID, I think most institutions are emphasizing all the instructors to teach in person. But I occasionally have to teach online, like because of my family emergency, like when my child is sick, or also sometimes when I do online activities, like recently I'm doing like language and culture exchange with students in Japan on the weekend night, and also last semester we did synchronous online debate with other schools during the class time. So I'd like to mention those activities as well. So why I became Japanese instructor, Japanese teacher is like I originally was an English teacher at Japanese public high school after I finished my college. And after I teaching English at high school students, I really enjoyed interacting with young people and also teaching language. Also, my personal interest is like learning new languages, like foreign languages. But after I taught quite a while, and I thought I want to brush up my English as well, and also want to learn how to teach foreign language, formally. So I decided to go to University of Mississippi for my first master's degree in TESOL. And there, that was my first time to teach Japanese and also studying at the US. So I was very enlightened the study of language and also how Japanese is so unique like other languages. So I went back to Japan and have to quit my job in Japan and came back to US and entered the Ohio State to study Japanese. And now I'm here now. So I'm really enjoying teaching language all the time. And yeah, I'd like to learn more from today's panel. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Nozaki Sensei. And your students are very lucky to have you, and we're very lucky to have you as well here in America. So welcome to our discussion today. We look forward to having you. Also new today, joining us, we have Kobuke Sensei. If you could please introduce yourself, let us know a little bit about you, and we're always curious to know what inspired you, if anything, to become a Japanese teacher.
はい、おはようございます。I'm Lisa Kobuke, and I teach Japanese at Kapi Community College in Hawaii. And I was originally one of those who didn't believe that it's possible to teach Japanese online before COVID. And then Corona happened. And then I began teaching synchronously and realized it is possible to do it asynchronously. Although not perfect, it is possible. And now I teach mainly asynchronous courses, Japanese courses. And how I became a Japanese teacher, I was originally a psychology major, and that was until I took my first Japanese literature course. And the professor made us memorize a poem. And I just loved the poem. I loved the aesthetics. I loved the philosophy packed into that one short poem. And that's when I switched. I switched from psychology to Japanese. And I was planning to go into literature, Japanese literature, study Japanese literature. But after I graduated with a degree in Japanese, I'm a heritage language learner. And so after I graduated with a degree in Japanese, I just went to work. And what I did was completely different from Japanese. And I realized this is not what I want to do. I need Japanese in my life, daily work life. So I went back to graduate school where I had an opportunity to learn from awesome mentors and professors. And I had the chance to teach Japanese as a graduate assistant. And I enjoyed the interaction with the students. And that's how I became a Japanese teacher instructor. I look
Oh,
forward to learning with everyone. Thank you.
that's a beautiful story, Kobuke Sensei. Can I ask, was the poem the Iroha poem by any chance?
Exactly.
Onajines,
That's
it was
it.
the same way for me. I
Oh
love that poem so
my
much.
gosh.
That's cool to make that connection. Thank you so much. And
Thank
then
you.
let's go to Maeda Sensei. If you can please introduce yourself. I know we had you for Monday, and we really appreciate your time. But maybe you could just tell for those of us who are newer a little bit about yourself. And the question I want to ask, since we already asked you why you became a Japanese teacher, if you can please share what you love most about teaching Japanese online. Thank you.
Okay, hi. My name is Magara Maeda, and I'm teaching Japanese language, mainly first and second year level Japanese at University of Wisconsin, River Falls. And just like you, I started out with the regular, like in-person classroom teacher, right? But then, since 2008, I've been teaching Japanese in a distance education mode. So, um, these days, I've been teaching mainly either blended or the hybrid format. And when I was counting, I just realized I've been longer teaching in the online format than the regular classroom. So, and then just like the Kobuke sensei said, when I took the distance education position in 2008, I thought, oh, this is terrible. I cannot do this in this format. I cannot do this. But, I changed a lot and I'm so grateful that I'm teaching in this format right now. So yeah, I mean, um, I, I just see these challenges as a welcome challenges. This is a great opportunity to improve or innovate your own teaching. So much things can be done. So I welcome you to here. So your question, what are the best things about teaching Japanese online? So yeah, just like I said, things like the challenges are actually really great things for me to, inspire me to go further. Well, there must be a way to do this. And, wow, this is done. So yeah, um, I encourage all of you to explore those. Yeah. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes, it is great to have challenges that come up because it inspires us to be better educators. Thank you so much for that. And Bostwick Sensei, we'll finish off with you. Again, if you can please introduce yourself for those who were not here on Monday. And same question to you. What's your favorite thing about teaching Japanese online?
All right. Well, thank you, Sarah. I am Revae Bostwick, and I teach with North Carolina Virtual Public Schools. And for those of you who don't know, it's a program in which students from all throughout North Carolina can register for classes, and they earn high school credit for these classes. So they can be located on the other side of the state from where I am located and still take the class and earn high school credit for their high school, which is a great opportunity because we have very few schools in North Carolina that offer a face-to-face Japanese program. So this is a very good opportunity for students who don't have that option in their school. And I think one of the favorite things for me about teaching Japanese is actually when I get synchronous opportunities to teach the language. Currently with our program, I am in charge of the asynchronous portion, unless there are some tutoring type things that students need help with. Then I don't get the opportunity to do the synchronous part very much anymore. So I do miss that a lot. That's my favorite part of it, is getting to help students in the moment to clear up any kind of confusion and just encourage them to keep going on, and they can do it. Try to focus on the positives and make sure that they feel motivated to keep going and keep trying.
Well, thank you for that, Revae. And yes, we certainly have fantastic students at NCVPS. I absolutely love my job because of the students, and it's just so great to work with them. Thank you for that. So let's go ahead and jump into our questions. And this session, again, is a little bit more geared toward learner-to-learner interaction. So we're going to start with our first question. And actually, I think we'll start with Maeda Sensei since you talked about challenges. The question is, in the context of online language teaching, what are your biggest challenges using Japanese during learner-to-learner interaction, and how do you address those challenges?
Well, I cannot find any challenges. And good teaching, good teaching. So I'm sure you are, already doing the great, learner to learner interactions, maximizing, using the target language in your regular face-to-face classroom. So it's no difference, doing that online. So I don't really see any challenges. So all you have to do is just transfer the good practice to online. But I'd like to share some of the things I've been doing. So during the synchronous session, I think the plenty of supports for the students is really important. So I usually use the, Google Slides, and then on the Google Slides, I include the communicative strategies list, and then or useful expressions list, or target structures or keywords. And so, for example, communication strategies list include like, ああ、そうですか。私ももう一度お願いします。ゆっくりお願いします。So these are the ones that really, students need during the interaction. And instead of asking, what did you say in English? They should be able to saying this all the time in Japanese. So, every time I share this, okay, here is the communication strategies. And make sure you use these, maybe 2 or 3 this time, right? So I really encourage them. And also help with the self-awareness. You might also want to give the students checklist so that students can monitor their own language use. All right, so now, I'm going to send you to the breakout room to do this, but here is the list. And the list might say, did you use at least 5 Japanese words or today's keywords or that type of thing. So the students can constantly, focus on that. And also I'd like to focus on growth, not the perfection. Oh, you didn't use Japanese, that's not good. No. They are learning. So it's okay to use English. But sometimes at the end of the class, I give them exit tickets to reflect on their language learning. So like that might include today's class, how much Japanese did you use? Like, most of the time or 50%. And then how can you improve that for the next session? So that students can really think about that. And then the breakout room, I usually float between the breakout rooms, just like I would do in the physical classroom. And then the reason is I'm not there to policing, oh, you're not using Japanese, but try to support and praise when they're using Japanese. Well, oh yeah, that's great. Keep up on doing. And also here you can say, ゆっくりお願いします, right? Remember that? So that's what I am doing. And also I encourage you to think about why students are having difficulty using Japanese during the interaction. Right? This can apply to your, non-online environment too. Maybe the students need more scaffolding. Remember scaffolding we talked about the day one, and also more practice. So I also give the student for the asynchronous online time, I give them a speaking practice with AI so they can practice and get ready for the synchronous session, right? Yes, you've done this with AI, so now today you get to talk to the real person, your classmate. So that practice, and also Padlet, I think, I ask students to submit their speaking, like some video, then students can watch and ask questions. So that again, this will be a great practice and preparation for the synchronous live session. So that, but are you talking about, Sarah, are you talking about the synchronous online session or the asynchronous session interaction? Both?
Me either, because there's the aspect of when you're together, it's synchronous sessions. And I agree, a lot of the stuff from face-to-face classroom absolutely will carry over. Personally, I do find some challenges with the asynchronous interaction between learners to learners. So if you have any impact on or feedback on that, we're happy to hear about it.
So that I think the asynchronous, leveraging the technology, anything is possible. So I usually use Padlet so that students can, share the video, speaking assignments and so forth. And also if you are collaborating with your, partner school in Japan, then asynchronous is a great way because you don't have to worry about the time differences, right? So I use Padlet a lot to collaborate, with Japanese students so that, for example, I'd like to share one of my favorite speaking activities. Well, self-introduction, you do that, but I, use the format of two truths and a lie. Self-introduction, right? So the student's gonna make a 3 sentences. 2 of the sentences about you is truth, and 1 is a lie, right? So that student's gonna, post that speaking assignment, self-introduction video. Then I don't stop there. So I have students to see 2 other classmates' video, and then this time respond to the 2 other classmates' video. Oh, I think number 1 is true, no, not true, or number 3 is that's wrong information. But students have to do this again, all in Japanese, right? So that's the step 2. And then the third layer is now you must get lots of comment from your classmates. So go back to your original video introduction and watch all other people's comments and guesses, then present your answer. So this way you can have multiple interaction time. And yeah, it's not done like the spontaneously, but this is the best things you can do over the asynchronous. And I really enjoy doing that. I can learn a lot about my students. So it's a great activity for the community building as well, right? Thank you.
Yes, I agree. It's a great way to build community, but as educators, we can also get to know more about our students. That's going to help us to build those connections and build rapport with them. That way they get to know us and feel a lot more comfortable working with us. It's going to help push them outside their comfort zones. Thank you so much for that, Maeda Sensei. Really good. And so the same question, let's go to you, Bostwick Sensei. In the context of online language teaching, what are your biggest challenges using Japanese during learner-to-learner interaction, and how do you address those challenges?
Well, thank you. Maeda Sensei, you gave a lot of good examples that I was going to share as well, but I'm going to just build on what you had said, because I think that sometimes we find that when we say, okay, students, go talk about, go introduce yourselves, but then they're just very quiet when they're in the breakout rooms. They don't know what to say. They resort to English or chit chat. So the giving the keywords or the chat mats, like was explained in the chat box, those are very good key points. And I find even myself, when I'm attending a professional development and they say, okay, everyone go talk about XYZ, but you don't remember what those things were, even if you have just the keywords in Japanese or English to tell you what were those things you were supposed to talk about before you go to your break room, I think are important. Also, in our K-12 environment, we have so many students now that are reporting that they are seeing a doctor or a therapist for anxiety, and they have a very difficult time doing the synchronous discussions. So preparing them in advance also has become very important for us. We either provide them with the topics that they're going to talk about, or those key strategies ahead of time before the synchronous time even happens, because there are so many that are just afraid to even turn on the microphone. So we're trying to combat that, because we do want them to have that experience, but yet still kind of respect the fact that they're suffering from anxiety. So we're trying to find the best possible scenario for them. Another thing that could be done is, if you send your students to breakout rooms, you can let them know ahead of time that they're going to have to report back what they talked about and what did their partners say. Like if they did the self-introduction Maeda Sensei was talking about, okay, come back now, tell me, introduce your partner that you just talked with in the breakout room, so that they know they have to come back with something. Even if it's a lie, they have to come back with something. So they need to prepare that with their partner. Another thing you could do is you could have some peer evaluation. How would you assist your partner in making some better sentences, better questions, or things like that? What else did I have here? I think that was most of the additional things that I wanted to add after listening, I should say, to Maeda Sensei's answers.
Thank you for that, Revae. And yes, trying to do that peer evaluation again from the growth mindset, making it all about how can we make things even better. I love that. And you also touched upon something, especially for the K-12 environment. We really have to be mindful that some of our students, personally, I've had several who have IEPs and accommodations that say this student is suffering from anxiety, depression, and we have to make sure that we honor that because we have to comply with the law. But at the same time, we want them to be able to speak and share things. So we really have to walk a line in the K-12 environment. And I think the tips that you gave are good, where we're doing as much as we can. We're providing the scaffolding, right? And letting them know what to expect so that way they can feel a little safer in these social interactions. Thank you for that, Revae. I appreciate that. Let's go to Nozaki Sensei next. And again, the same question. In the context of online language teaching, what are your biggest challenges using Japanese during learner-to-learner interaction, and how do you address those challenges?
Yeah, so for me, my biggest challenge using Japanese in the online setting is to secure enough time for the student to speak out in the limited time. So it's similar to the classroom setting, but as I saw a first part of the yesterday's session, and I think Raft Sensei mentioned that there is some lag between the interaction to the teachers and between the participants. So yeah, after I did online classes every day, like COVID time, yeah, I found online teaching takes more time to do activities. Like usually when I doing in-person sitting, I can do 6 activities, but in online I can do only like 4 or 5. So in order to keep up the same schedule as in person, yeah, I like using breakout rooms, and yeah, that's a great way to secure speaking time. It's pretty much same strategy as in the classroom setting to increase each student's speaking time, like making a pair work or a group work so that everyone have more time to speak out. So, but as I think, I'm sorry, my pronunciation is by Bostwick Sensei, mentioned like it is very important to tell students to be be prepared to get into the breakout room. So, yeah, before I assign breakout room to the students, I make sure students have already mastered the correct forms, like T forms or certain grammar structure, and make sure everyone mastered the form. And then I send them to the breakout rooms. And after assign the breakout rooms, I visit each room to check if they are doing the interactions well. And yeah, and also Maeda Sensei mentioned a very important thing. I'm not trying to monitoring like policing your performance, but just try to keep positive attitude to the student and keep motivating them to speak well without worrying about making mistakes. And yeah, so while doing the breakout rooms, I noticed that usually in online classroom, I share like PowerPoint slides or Google slides or like as a whole um, the presentation like as in-person classroom. But once they went into the breakout room, they cannot see those shared slides. So I'm a big fan of Google Slides and Google Docs. So I usually created a Google Doc as a shared classroom notes. And if I have time, I like list up target grammar or important points or useful expressions to use in the breakout rooms. And then after students went into the breakout rooms, they can refer to that Google Doc and in case when they forget what they are supposed to do in the breakout rooms and so on. Yeah, and yeah, so to secure the student speaking time, breakout room is a very helpful tool. And also also this is also mentioned by Maeda sensei, and I also take advantage of the outside the classroom time as well to increase their students' learning time. So yeah, I think Maeda sensei mentioned yesterday or today, last time or today, my school also uses a Canvas, and I often use discussion board. Still, I use discussion board as an assignment now. And so it's also a great tool for like outside classroom do outside classroom interactions for students. So like one of the fun activity was like I assigned students to create their original memes and post it in the discussion board. And students see their classmates funny memes and just leave comments so that it's very fun. Like yeah, any any schools like students love any fun, humorous, like funny activities. So that was a good activity. Yeah, and also I just learned Maeda Sensei's like two truths and one lie introduction. So I will use this semester's introduction. Yeah, I also use Padlet for self-introduction when I don't have time. Usually I secure to secure my class time. So yeah, that was also very fun activity. Yeah, and I also like the Padlet as well. But yeah, recently they changed to more like paid version. Like still we can use like free 3 Padlets. So, but Padlet is also a great tool to upload the short videos. So yeah, it's also good for students to interact outside the classroom as well. Yeah, so my biggest challenge is to try to secure more student speaking time, either in classroom and outside classroom.
I agree, using time efficiently to really maximize the amount of output our students are giving us and then giving them that live feedback. It's challenging, but I like the ideas you shared. I also am probably going to have to borrow that idea about memes just to have the students collaborate and use memes to make connections with each other. And it's a great way to build a following as well. I think a lot of students taking your class would say, hey, if you take Japanese with Nozaki sensei, you get to do this meme activity. And so people will be interested, right? So a great way to also build the program through fun. Thank you so much for that. And Kobuke sensei, definitely last but not least, let's go to you in the context of online language learning. What are your biggest challenges using Japanese during learner-to-learner interaction, and how do you address these challenges?
I think everyone has mentioned a lot of strategies already, but I think in order to encourage students to be using and communicating in the language, it's important to foster the students wanting to figure out what's being said in Japanese and being okay with ambiguity. And being able to understand, being okay with ambiguity and being okay with not being able to understand everything that's being said. And I think that comes with being exposed to hearing that all the time. So like telling stories about yourself and sharing that, and then checking for comprehension, and then both synchronous as well as asynchronous, we can do that. And this, Maeda sensei already mentioned the key, providing students with the tools they need to communicate. I have a student, an older student, who wants to live in Japan, and he took just the beginning level Japanese with us, and then he's studying abroad on his own in Japan. And he said the most important thing he learned in Japanese 101 was すみません、もう一度ゆっくりお願いします. And this is what Maeda has already mentioned, but or 何々は日本語で何と言いますか or 英語で何と言いますか or 何々って何ですか were so useful in speaking. And I wanted to, in an asynchronous course, to build the strategies for students to be able to use that. I wanted to build a chat bot to practice that communication strategy. And I was actually inspired, I think Rachel Sensei is here, by Rachel Mamiya Hernandez Sensei's demonstration on how to use Mizu to create chatbots. And I actually created one. And this is my first time, and I'm refining it to use in the fall. And I encountered challenges that Luft Sensei mentioned on Monday about the chatbot not following our instructions or directions. But it's, I think, especially in an online asynchronous course, having that practice with the chatbot is provide students with more confidence in using it when they have to practice it with classmates or with a tutor. And I'm going to go off a little bit on a tangent, but because I'm new to creating chatbots, I joined an AI professional development program with the University of Hawaii Online Innovation Center. And that was this summer, just about a month ago. And I learned about AI literacy using the UNESCO AI competency framework for teachers and for students. My gosh, it was just so eye-opening, like, me kara uroko, really eye-opening. And I was just thinking, oh, I'm going to create a chatbot for my course in the fall semester. But now I know I need to start with AI literacy in Japanese, learning language, learning any type of language, addressing how does AI work, the ethical issues using AI in a course, reliability, the bias, doing what's right when using AI, and protecting personal information, privacy. So especially with a beginning level class, most of what we're going to be practicing is information about the student themselves. So names, onamae wa, or, where did you come from? Those types of information that students are going to want to put in about themselves. So I'll be, when I do this in the fall semester, I'll be making sure to go over AI literacy with the students, make sure when you practice with your chatbot, use a nickname or some name that's not your own. And then where you're from, don't put in exactly where you're from, but try to use places you want to be living in, or other locations. And so Mizu has been approved by our university, by the third-party tools list, but I think it's still good to be cautious and provide that information to the students, and the information about sustainability. Students are really into sustainability now, but knowing about how much the massive energy that's needed when using AI, I didn't know about that. So having students know about that, they'll probably still use it, but still having that in the back of the mind, I think is important. And our college, Kapi Community College, is an indigenous serving institution. So aligning the AI guidelines with the college's mission and values, and presenting that to students from the beginning, maybe with like a H5P interactive or course presentation. And then going into the chatbot is what I'm thinking. Right now I'm working on and getting ready for the fall semester. So I'm really still a newbie at the chatbot.
Well, it's great to hear that you're really diving into the deep end with that, Kobuke Sensei. And I know there's so much to think about with AI, as you talked about the guidelines and making sure we're protecting student privacy. In the K through 12 world, so much of the stuff we're teaching students to share about themselves in Japanese is personally identifiable information that has to be protected by FERPA. So there's so many things to think about. And I think you did a great job of giving an overview of all the things that we have to consider if we're using AI. So thank you so much for sharing that. Great stuff here. Thank you all, everyone. We're going to go ahead and move to our second question. And let's start with Nozaki Sensei. The question is, how do you use technology or online resources to successfully facilitate synchronous activities?
Yes, so yes, for synchronous activity, technology or online resources, I think I'm still old-fashioned teacher, but yeah, similar to in-person teaching, I still like to use like online textbook audio materials, and so pretty much old-fashioned. Like, so that's first of all. So, but anyway, so when we introduce a textbook like a lesson dialogue that includes a target vocabulary and grammars. So, firstly, I use that it's of course a free, and students can use can access to that audio material like through the internet. So I use that audio material and as a dialogue comprehension, like a listening practice. So I ask students to close the textbook and first focus on what they hear. I usually play 2 times, and then student will pick up whatever they heard. And after that, I ask students, what did you hear? So I start asking questions from the big question, like what was the conversation about, and where do you think the conversation took place, and who were the participants, and so on, and go into the more details. And then after I checked students' listening comprehension ability, and then students can see the textbook and a dialogue in the textbook and check the content together and make them understood fully. And after that, I ask them to close the textbook and do a shadowing after that. So yeah, so when I have time, usually I ask them to do shadowing 2 times in the classroom so that they can develop their uh, listening ability, and as well as speaking fluency. And also, as a technology, I also use again Google Doc and Google Slides as shared notes. So, like as I mentioned, like from me, I will like write down some helpful notes or extra information or vocabulary and grammar expressions that are not in the textbook. And also, I also take a notes when I mentioned in the classroom. And also, students can also contribute to the notes, like they can add more notes or more useful expressions or vocabulary to the notes. So it's become like as a course notebook for everyone. And also, yeah, Google Doc and Google Slides are very helpful during the breakout room, as I mentioned. And yeah, so also, yeah, they can work outside the classroom time, like, oh yeah, yeah, so I use Google Doc and Google Slides during my uh, like online activities with other schools, other groups, like doing a cultural language exchange with a student in Japan. That type for that case, I create Google Slides for each exchange, and so the slides includes the schedule of the exchange. So I take usually 50 minutes, like the same time as a regular classroom. And yeah, that asynchronous activity is also great, but probably yeah, it's a little burden for the students to yeah, participate in the class on Friday nights when other people are maybe partying. But anyway, I ask students to just once or twice a semester. And then, but anyway, I use a Google Slides for the online cultural language exchange. And so they can see the schedule. So the schedule is usually in 15 minutes. Usually there are 2 sessions, like, so each session is composed of Japanese only time and also English only time. So for the Japanese only time, both our students and students in Japanese school, university or high school students speak only Japanese and talk about one like a assigned topic, or they create something online. And then in the second session, the member will change but still stick to the same topic or task. So yeah, so for example, like last semester, I assigned a topic as like a Valentine Day. So they ask Japanese students about how they spend their Valentine's Day, and Japanese students also may ask, or like our Yale students will introduce Valentine culture in America to the Japanese students, and so on. So yeah, so I use those Google Docs and in this case Google Slides in online cultural language exchange. And also another event that I used to Google Doc was online debate. So that was a new activity for me to do that. That was pretty much challenging for us. But yeah, we did that online debate during the class time, so it's a synchronous activity with other school. So we use the Zoom and use a special camera. It's called like OWL. So that shows the whole class. And so, yeah, my class, there was, I think at that time, like 15 students or so. So I divided into two groups, and also other opponent school also make a small group, like same number as ours. So we did that during the regular class hour, like 10:30 to 11:20 or something. And then during that time, they also use the Google Doc to write down their opening statement. So each team created their opening statement before the debate time. And then they said that opening statement during the debate time. And after they hear each team's opening statement, and then there is some time, like 3 to 5 minutes to develop their rebuttal statement. So that time, like each student has a laptop, so they worked on the one like draft, like one script for the rebuttal, and also the opening statement, and discuss. Actually, that was they work on the statement face to face, but they also use the Google Docs to revise their rebuttal statement as well. Yeah. So yeah, so technology, so Google Doc and Google Slides for those activities, and I think everyone already used like Zoom poll or Kahoot. I use these for like quick review from the last lessons or some informal quiz. So yeah, those are the technology resources for the synchronous activities for me.
Fantastic. And it's a great way just to think about things we might use every day, Google Docs, Google Slides, thinking about how we can use these tools to help students feel more comfortable in these synchronous activities. So great feedback there. Thank you for that, Nozaki Sensei. Next, let's go ahead and go to Kobuke Sensei. And again, it's the same question. How do you use technology or online resources to successfully facilitate synchronous activities?
I use Nearpod. I use Extempore, Nearpod, Padlet, H5P, and Zoom check-ins as a whole when teaching. And I began using Nearpod when teaching synchronously. And this was after one semester, well, half a semester when Corona hit. We had to teach online. And that time I had no choice. I wasn't ready yet. So I used PowerPoint slides, one set for the students, one set for me. And then I had no idea where students were looking when we're doing class synchronously. And I didn't like that. I'm sort of a control freak. I need to know where they are. And I wanted more control. I wanted to embed activities, different types of activities in one location so that students don't have to go, oh, okay, go to this link or go to this link and then come back. So in the fall of 2020, I started using Nearpod, and it was pretty much exactly what I had wanted, what I was looking for. And the reason why is you can control the slides. Students cannot jump ahead with Nearpod, and you can see how the student is interacting with the content. You can do short quizzes, take a poll, do drag and drop activities, matching pair activities, Kahoot type games, and see how the students are doing, how they are interacting with that, and also provide individual feedback synchronously on the spot. So I love that too, individual feedback. And there's a discussion board, collaboration board in Nearpod, where students can post things similar to how students post on Padlet. And students can type in or record responses to each other that you could use maybe as like a practice before going into a breakout room. And then when introducing the characters, any of the characters, hiragana, katakana, or kanji, you can use the drawing tool in Nearpod. And you can watch how the students are actually writing if they're following the kakijun, and provide feedback with either maru, niju maru, or hanamaru, or stickers in the Nearpod. And before they go into breakout rooms, if we're teaching synchronously, they can practice individually by listening to my prompt and recording their answer, and then go into the breakout room and practice with their classmates. And within the breakout room, students can use the Nearpod to capture the information that they're gaining from the interaction within the activity and the breakout session. And we can see all of that. The teachers can see all of that. And you can also include like a self-reflection or exit ticket at the end of the session. And this is all within one without having to go and use different apps. So I really love Nearpod. And I actually use it for asynchronous class as well. There's the teacher paste, and then there's a student paste. So it can be used in both. And I think H5P pretty much, you can use H5P in a similar way, although you're not able to provide the feedback, the individualized feedback with H5P as it is with the Nearpod. But yeah. And then probably extempore is another one that's useful to do activities, especially if it's like a asynchronous course. You can have students who are not able to meet at one time at a specific time record their responses within extempore, and then you can go in and provide feedback. You can do within extempore after the students turn in the assignment. You can find the exact point where you want to say, here, maybe if you could say it this way, it would be better, or the pronunciation, if you could say it this way, it would be better. Pinpoint exactly how you can help the students improve. So I like Nearpod and extempore.
I love that you keep touching upon the feedback aspect. And yes, students really need that feedback, especially when we have the luxury of giving it to them in real time. But even in cases where they can't maybe meet you at that same exact time, you have the ability, as you said, to pinpoint where they can slightly make improvements, and they can really move up that ladder of proficiency with that feedback. Thank you for that, Kobuke Sensei. Much appreciated. Maeda Sensei, we'll go to you next, and it's the same question. How do you use technology or online resources to successfully facilitate synchronous activities?
Okay, so to me, synchronous activities, synchronous sessions should be where the active learning happens. Meaning the very interactive, hands-on, and engaging, and minimal the lecture. So that these other teachers mentioned all these great tools, but I use the shared Google Slides or Doc. So where each pair or group can be assigned to the page of the Google Slides, and then they work on the tasks, so that I can see while the students are working on, okay, this is what they are doing. So I can really learn how they are working on. And after that, we can share that one with the class. And
Maeda Sensei, you just muted.
yeah, my dog is barking. So can you come back to me?
Absolutely. I totally understand, as I have too. Bostwick Sensei, let's jump to you. And the question again is, how do you use technology or online resources to successfully facilitate synchronous activities?
All right, thank you. Yes, in our synchronous activities, we typically do use Google Slides to present the information for students to talk about. And we are trying to make sure that our activities that we do during that time are synchronous, like you had said, like they are going to be working and talking and writing and speaking and listening, all of those things, rather than just listening. I do understand the importance of doing a little bit of lecture, but if we spend the whole time lecturing, we're not utilizing that time wisely, I think. So making sure that they have a lot of activities that they can do where they are producing language. We are a little bit limited with the resources that we can utilize during those sessions, because we do have to make sure we're not using any websites that would take students down a path where they might see a picture or an image that they should not, or get a link to another site that is inappropriate for a high school student or middle school. We have middle school students taking our classes sometimes. So we do have to be careful where we allow our students to go to. And in terms of the content, we are also restricted a little bit. Someone asked in the chat about the textbooks that we utilize. In our NCVPS courses, it's about 99% teacher created. So our texts are created, our examples, our pictures, all of those things, we have to find copyright-free resources to utilize so that we don't have any issues later with legality. Our institution, unfortunately, because it does serve so many students, sometimes 30 to 50,000 students in a year, not just Japanese, don't be shocked, it's not the whole NCVPS program, but because it serves so many students, it then becomes a target for any legality type issues. So we do have to be very, very careful with the resources we utilize. Also, we have found that some schools are blocking all of the Google products. So we have to sometimes present our information in a PDF format so our students can access it. So we do sometimes have to have both the Google Slide version and a PDF version. Now, if you have a PDF version, your students are not going to be able to interact with that in the same way they could with a Google Slide. So we do have to take that into consideration when we have students that aren't able to access those resources. And then I think that if you can utilize anything, I know I was looking at in the past, we used to be able to use things like Kahoot and Blooket and games like that. I think it's a good idea if you can ask your students to create the Blooket or to create the Kahoot rather than presenting it to them to play sometimes. And I say that just because I teach in a face-to-face elementary school, and I see the way that they play the Kahoot and the Blookets now. They didn't used to, but now they just hit the button. They don't care if they've answered it correct, incorrect. They just go and smash the button as fast as they can, because the goal is to get the new character, to get the new coat or whatever the fashion that they can add to their character. So maybe you can shift and have the students be in charge of creating those tools.
I also like the aspect of train the trainer type learning where you're asking students to explain to you what is this vocabulary word or what is this grammar point and how do I use it? Because it really takes them into that upper level bloom so they're able to not only understand what to do, but be able to explain it to somebody else. So really getting into those deeper levels of learning. I love that. Thank you, Revae. Maeda Sensei, if it's okay to go back.
So one of my go-to tool is the Zoom whiteboard. So those who has been using Jamboard, Google Whiteboard works just like Jamboard. It's free. So may I share this one?
By all
The,
means, please do.
so that it's under, at the bottom, you see the next to the breakout room icon, whiteboard. So then I am going to share this one. So can you see this one?
We can. Thank you.
Yeah. So then, for example, that I can just grab this, post it, and so you can write in Japanese. So that I often use this one to have a, um, mapping, concept mapping or the brainstorming with the student. So here I put the online 学習の課題. So on the left side, everybody, can you see the sticky note after the Sigma sign? So you can grab any of the sticky notes and please share your online 学習の課題. You can write this one in Japanese. So that I can also do the KWL activities on this. So this is a really great interactive activity one, and I can post this kind of smiley mark or I love dogs. So I can say, oh wow, what you said is really great doing this kind of things. And also I can move it around. Okay, so these people said the same thing. So like that. So this is a really great one, and my students love this one. So this is great hands-on activities, and this one is saved within the Zoom, so that maybe the next class session we can come back and build onto this one, or I can share this one with the another section of my same like Japanese 101 class. So it's really great tool. So I highly recommend you to do that. Okay, so, all right. So that was the Zoom whiteboard. Yeah, that's all.
That was really interactive and fun. And I also like the idea of working on something in one class and then going back and building upon it in the next class, or maybe even a week or two. You might need to revisit something because everyone forgot about
Right.
tapeworm or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
I love it.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because the one class, maybe they're not performing well. So I say, okay, here's what we did earlier in this class. And what else would you like to add? So it's really collaborative, aspect too.
Yes, I love the collaborative aspect. And also, students can go back and look at their own work and realize maybe, well, how far have I come? And looking at things that they did before, or maybe even just remembering, oh, yes, we did that. And this was the activity I did. And that might jog their memory a bit. This is fantastic. Thank you. And let's go to our next question. Let's see. Well, we'll go ahead and start with Kobuke Sensei this time. And the question is about feedback. How do you provide feedback that's necessary to learn while encouraging students to partake in learner interaction in the online environment?
So in addition to what I mentioned earlier, uh, I have like a scaffolded approach where I have pairs of students when possible. Uh, so usually at the beginning of the semester, we find times where students are able to meet, even if it's asynchronous, uh, to meet with each other via Zoom to practice tasks or conversations. And then submit the recording. So at one point, the first one, they would submit a video. I use video feedback to respond to that. I'm not able to use extempore for this one because they're not able to record video. pair videos in extempore. And sending a video feedback, students tend to watch it more than if it's like a text message within the LMS. So if you have a video, they tend to watch it. So I use the video to provide feedback. And then the next step, I have the students, the same pair of students, go to meet a tutor via Zoom, also via Zoom, to practice and receive feedback from tutors. So the stress level is a little lower when students meet with peer tutors. And then they receive feedback from the tutors, and they can compare the feedback they received from me and see if they've made improvements or what they still need to work on. The tutors also, I have them complete like a really short Google form rubric so that I know I'm informed of where the students are at when they meet the tutors. And then the next step would be the oral performance, where they would either in pairs or have a conversation just with me. So depending on the level, so if students are more comfortable at a level earlier in the semester, then it would be they'll be working in pairs. A little later on, I would have them have a conversation with me. Yeah.
I really like that you touched upon the idea of either working with peer tutors or even just working with peers. I think sometimes we can overlook that as educators because they are getting that feedback from each other. They're also getting feedback potentially from a peer tutor. And sometimes even just hearing something in a different way. I think sometimes we tend to have our own set ways of how we explain things, but when students go in and work with peers, sometimes there's another level or something that might just click with them. So I really like the idea of getting feedback from each other as well as from you, just adding an extra layer of feedback. Thank you so much for that. Nozaki Sensei, let's go to you. Again, it's going to be the same question about feedback. How do you provide feedback that's necessary to learn while encouraging students to partake in learner interaction in the online environment?
Yeah, so I also apply to the normal in-person strategy as well. So when I give feedback to the students, my biggest goal is to have students to speak out more. So I try not to discourage students by giving a feedback. So to avoid doing that, I do like sandwich method, like so compliment, feedback, and compliment. So start with mention the great point, good points that students did. Like, for example, while students are talking, I try to pick up the great points to mention at the first. For example, like some students have a very loud, clear voice and speak out, or even though their grammars are not so perfect, but the student was trying to say very good opinions. So first, I find the good points of the student and give a compliment, and then add one or two small, but for students, but it don't have to be a big feedback, but I have to pick one or two important feedback that is essential to their um, speech and also a target grammar or phrases. And then, so while I'm telling the feedback to the student, I try also not to like talking about the students' speech, but also I try to talk to everyone because probably the student is not the only students to make the mistake. So I try to tell everyone about the feedback and then going back to the compliment again, but it was a really good opinion overall and so on. So I close with a compliment and so try to keep a good positive atmosphere in the classroom so the student will try to speak out more next time as well. And also another important point that I keep in mind all the time is to always wait until students finish their interactions or activities. So this is a great advantage during the online class. So while students are talking each other and interacting, so I take memo like under the screen and list up what I want to mention and good point as well, and some important feedback and list down. And so after they talk to each other, and then I start with the comment. That was a great interaction. Someone did this, and then just give a feedback to those pairs or like groups. Like I'm talking to everyone like about that, and then close with a compliment again. So so I do that strategies to give a feedback to the students, and while keeping a good atmosphere, positive atmosphere in the classroom.
It is so important to come from that place of appreciation because a lot of times, especially I've noticed with students who struggle, it's really hard for them to come out of their shell and kind of take a risk, right? They're giving an answer, they're thinking there's probably a lot wrong with it, and it can be a little scary, but when you really come from that place of appreciation, like you said, Nozaki Sensei, you give them a compliment, then you give the feedback. And it's so important to give that from the growth mindset lens, right? And then we give another compliment to make sure that the students know we really appreciate the work that they're putting forth. Really good strategies. Thank you for that. Maeda Sensei, we'll go to you. And again, it's the same question about feedback. How do you provide feedback that's necessary to learn while encouraging students to partake in learner interaction in the online environment?
Okay, so as Kobuke sensei mentioned, power of the video feedback is so true that yes, I think the research also supports that students tend to pay more attention or watch for the video feedback rather than just simple text feedback. So, but then sometimes it's giving the text feedback makes more sense depending on what kind of tasks you are doing. But particularly for the pronunciations, I use the video feedback and try to encourage them and give them correct model. And also, completely agree with what Nozaki Sensei just said. Give them compliment. So, that encourages students. Now, that AI is also a great way to provide the less stressful environment for practicing the interaction. So we've been talking about use AI so the students can practice the speaking. Then AI always compliment. You said, this is what you said is really great. Your pronunciation is really great. So, and then my students said that they love practicing with AI because one of the reasons is it's providing them less stressful environment. So that is so true. And so video feedback or, providing, mixture of the feedback type, either video or audio or the text, and also always giving them lots of support and encouragement. Yeah, thank you.
I wonder, did we lose Sarah Sensei?
Yeah, looks like it.
Okay, well, if you guys don't mind, I'll just go ahead and add my my
Go
answer
ahead.
while we're waiting. Okay, so many of you already touched on the points that I was thinking of. The very first thing is having a safe environment for students to feel capable and allowed to make mistakes. So I think that's the number one thing, is setting up that classroom synchronous environment, asynchronous or synchronous environment where they feel like it's okay to try and take that risk with learning a new language. Just to tell you a little bit about some of my experience, in the past, I was an instructional leader for the department. And so I would see the feedback other teachers would leave. There was one teacher who left, if I were to print it out, it was 3 pages of written feedback on an assignment for one single assignment. And it listed every single error that was in that student's response. Now, she felt the need to tell the student every single thing that the student did wrong, but when you see that volume of feedback you get for one assignment, I think that student probably just felt completely defeated and probably just didn't want to try. That's so much to work on. So the important thing about feedback is to give students information about how to improve, but in a way that's going to help them improve. I don't think that volumes and volumes of feedback on one assignment is the right way to go about it. So figure out what is important, like what were your main targets for that assignment, and give feedback that pertains to those main targets. But if it is 3 pages, then what do you think are the most critical that will help the student in the future on future assignments? So try to look at your feedback in that way. Also, I 100% agree that feedback, it doesn't always need to be written. It could be spoken, it could be video. And I think that's really important. And what is the goal of your feedback? If you want it to be read by the students, but you find that they're never, ever reading that feedback, we've got to do something to either encourage those students to access it or provide feedback in a different way. Because otherwise it's frustrating for the teacher who is saying, I've told the student 12 times that, it's not this character, it's that character. But if they're never reading it, it's a waste of the teacher's time and the student is not improving. So we need to look at our feedback and the delivery system and see, is there a better way we could provide feedback? I also agree, work on praising students, not always what they did wrong. Find some good points, even if it's a small thing, focus on those good points. I'm not sure, those of you who use Padlet, anytime you open it up, it says things like welcome beautiful or hello beautiful, or something that just makes you happy and smile. So I think encouraging our students to want to perform well for us, I think, is important. So encouraging them, even if it's for a small thing that they've done well. We do have struggling students who are not yet prepared for the synchronous content that we have. So providing those scaffolding techniques we talked about earlier, providing those in advance, I think will be helpful for your feedback on the end as well, because they can refer back to that scaffolded portion if necessary to see how they could improve based on that. Also one more thing on feedback. A lot of times when students make errors, because I was a Japanese learner myself, I usually know why they made that mistake. So I think it's important for us, if we can, to spend a little bit of time to explain what the correct way would be, but also why. So just saying, oh, it's not this character, it's that character, or it's this word, not that word. I think that if they don't know why, they really won't really acquire that language. It'll just be a one-time, this situation, it was this. But if we can explain why, I think that's really important too. Welcome back, Boutin Sensei.
Oh, thank goodness for the hotspot. It looks like my ISP is out all over my neighborhood based on what I'm seeing on the Wi-Fi settings. My apologies, everyone. But Revae, I caught the last bit of your answer talking about how, and I can certainly relate, I was not a native speaker of Japanese. I learned it as a second language. And so I have made a lot of the same mistakes that my students make, so we can share our experience and also build rapport with them. So really good stuff there. I appreciate you chiming in with that, Revae. But anyway, I've returned. And I do believe that that was the last of the panelists to chime in on that question about feedback. And that's such an important aspect of what we do with our students. That can definitely be important. Thinking a little bit about feedback and what makes Japanese kind of a unique language. Maybe we can talk about this briefly. I do want to be respectful of time. But Bostwick Sensei, we'll start with you. What kinds of things that are unique to the Japanese language do you think make giving feedback a little bit more challenging for our students, and how do you address that?
I think sometimes the feedback, when it's a part of speech that functions differently than what we would expect, or maybe it's an expression that it doesn't translate well from one language to the other. Sometimes that requires a little bit longer explanation as to why it's not correct and why it should be a different way. What else? Maybe some multiple meaning words and incorrect intonation. Sometimes that could cause a lengthy explanation, possibly. I'm trying to think of what else would be unique. I might have to come back to that one.
I think that's a great answer. And, just kind of being respectful of time as I want to make sure that we're kind of moving on to the Q&A part for the last 15 minutes. But you touched on a lot of things that make Japanese unique, especially for things like particles, for example, that can definitely be challenging. Thank you for that. And then Nozaki Sensei, if you don't mind chiming in, what kinds of things that are unique to Japanese do you think make giving feedback a little bit more challenging? And how do you address that?
Yeah, so I still haven't gotten a good answer for this, my challenges. Recently, I found like gender-specific items like first-person pronouns or sentence final particles. So the textbook mentions that like watashi can be used for both genders, but boku or ore are used for the males. But recently, it's not just recent things, but quite a while. Like even some like teenager girls will use boku or sometimes want to use ore, and so especially like this time and people wants to identify themselves in their uh, own ways. So recently I just mentioned just a general explanation for those first person pronoun like as traditional, and then also sometimes often introduce recent usage like usually recent. But yeah, recently teenage girls also use boku or ore, but and also actually students already know those gender specific like pronouns or expressions or and so on from the like animes and mangas and YouTube and so on. So they already know how to use and they know what they choose. So yeah, so yeah, for this diverse time, so sometimes we Japanese instructors have to know the trend of those use of the language in Japan as well. Yeah, so and also new like slangs or new words that comes out like every day or every hours. So yeah, that's all.
You made a good point about the slang, and I have to admit, I'm feeling very much like an old fogey these days because even students will use English things that they learned in TikTok. They'll say stuff like, "Am I in check?" And I don't know what that means. It is important to stay on top of it, not just for Japanese, but also for English. Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
so those speaking of slangs, like, recent often I hear either new Japanese words from the students who recently studied abroad and came back to Japan, and so they bring back a new words from Japan, and also sometimes heritage learners also bring up new words as well.
Yes, thank you for that. And Kobuke Sensei, same question, dealing with things that make Japanese a little bit unique and the challenges related to feedback. What kinds of things are unique to Japanese that can make giving feedback more challenging for students, and how do you address this?
More cultural words, like for example, students want to use anata right off the bat. So that, trying to explain that is difficult. Anata is you, but you need to explain how it's used. And then, for example, another one I can think of right off the bat is like arigatou gozaimasu. When in English, when we end our emails, we normally say, "Oh, thank you," even if it's a request. But in Japanese, if it's not done, it's a request, then it's not ありがとうございます. It's よろしくお願いします. Doing those cultural factors, I think, is a little bit more challenging for students to understand. Yeah, but just showing videos or examples of how it's done in Japan, I think that helps when explaining. Instead of just saying in Japan it's this, when they see it in through anime or see it through a video as some sort of clip from a TV show, then it hits, makes sense more.
Absolutely. And that's another great way we can make those real world connections if we can maybe show them a clip from an anime or maybe a dorama that explains a little bit about this is how people interact and why we do this. Excellent. Thank you for that, Kobuke sensei. And then Maeda sensei, how do you, or what kinds of things do you think are unique to Japanese that make giving feedback a little more challenging for the students? And how do you address that?
Well, everybody mentioned everything, but I agree with the Kobuke sensei that anata, particularly in the one-on-one class, they always ask anata wa during the breakout room or posting some questions to the, discussion. So I always say, well, yeah, explain that, and then actually use of anata could be rude. then and then also I said, well, instead use the classmate's name, Nannani-san wa. Then again, this can, help everybody to remember your classmate's name. So which leads to the building the community. So yeah. And then the other tough one is I think particles. The students are always struggling. So I said, well, that's okay, we just keep on learning it, don't be perfect, and that's how I explain it.
Particles are definitely a challenge. I can certainly vouch as somebody who was not a native speaker. I think particles were something that I really struggled with for a very long time. And as you said, we don't always have to be perfect. We keep going and we learn from our mistakes. And fundamentally, I think that's a good way to look at it. But again, fantastic conversation from everyone. There's been a lot of great suggestions shared, great feedback, really good stuff shared today. So I do want to thank everybody very much for all of your contributions. We will go ahead and take any questions that come in. So if anybody has questions or comments, please go ahead and share that with the chat. While we're waiting, Maeda Sensei and I and the rest of our participants had an offline discussion at the end of our session on Monday, and she had a really good idea for a possible opportunity for some additional collaboration among Japanese instructors. So, Maeda Sensei, if I could please turn that over to you, if you could share a little bit about your idea with us, please.
Yes, the another teacher of Japanese who's teaching at the community college, she said, it would be great to have a space for us to casually socialize and exchange information and support each other for those who are teaching Japanese online. And then when I belong to AATJ, American Association of Teachers of Japanese, but they don't have the specially interest group on online learning. But after 4, they have the distance learning, very active STIG. But for the online Japanese online teaching specific, we don't have that one yet. So I thought, well, since we are getting together like this might be a great opportunity. So those who are interested in, we prepared a very quick Google form, so we can just share that one. So you can kind of complete that one, and what how many of you are interested in forming this kind of group, in what format and what kind of activities you'd like to have, so that we can move forward and form the group. So yeah, that's the background of this support group. I know everybody is busy, but let's we can have some kind of space for us. Yeah, that's the one.
I just love the idea, Maeda Sensei. So thank you for providing the forum and spearheading this. I think it's really important for educators to have space to collaborate with each other, and especially now as we're going into such unprecedented times with AI and how it's not just shaping education, but our experiences in general as humans. Having a support network to share ideas with and talk about your struggles and your challenges and maybe ways to overcome them, and just encouraging each other too, because teaching isn't always the easiest profession. So I think it's good to have some kindred spirits to form a community with. So we thank you, Maeda Sensei, for offering the space for Japanese teachers. Very good stuff in here. Just taking a look. Oh, Bostwick Sensei had a question about the number of students in synchronous sessions. This is an entertaining one. And as she mentioned, I'd say about 8 to 10 is kind of the sweet spot for NCVPS. I've found just over the years doing it, if it's a very small group, especially if you have students who regularly don't attend, which unfortunately we get some of those, it can be very hard to facilitate those exercises. Sometimes it's like you're pulling teeth if you're calling on the same 3 students for the same things over and over again, right? But if there's too many, if there's maybe 15 to a group, we have to make sure everybody gets the speaking time. So it's a challenge to get everybody to speak when we have big groups. So I am curious if everybody would like to share when they do live synchronous sessions, how many students are in your groups, and if you have a more preferred sweet spot that you'd prefer, let us know that too.
I go first. I
Please go
think
ahead.
the Japanese 101, the very first class, has the largest, student number, right? So sometimes I have like a close to 30 students online. So that the Zoom, um, breakout room, there will be more than 10 rooms, right? So that's really overwhelming. But fortunately, in my program, we have a Japanese native speaking international student as hired as a facilitator. So for my synchronous session, I always have a facilitator. So when we have the Zoom breakout room, between the facilitator and I, we said, okay, I will start, checking the breakout room from the beginning. So you go from the bottom so that somebody can go over and, support them. And yeah, so if you can afford to have that, I think that's a great. So basically 2 teachers are in the classroom, essentially. Yeah.
That
Anybody
is
else?
wonderful to have a TA or somebody who even just has the background that can come in and facilitate the exercises. I think that's really helpful. Thank you. Kobuke Sensei, Nozaki Sensei, any thoughts on group sizes and what's the ideal group?
We used to be 24, but now we're down to 20, which is a little bit more manageable. But ideal, I think, is 10. 8 to 10, I think is really nice to work with, a number to work with. But yeah, we have 20.
And it can be a little challenging too, whenever you have online students, finding times when people are available to come together. One of the things that I love about NCVPS is that we have different conversation coaches who facilitate for us. So they can provide their schedules, and then the students can put in the times they're available to teach, to take coaching, and we match them based on when schedules line up. Because as Nozaki Sensei said, especially with the college level students, they want to go out and party, right? So it can be challenging to get the timing right. Agreed. Nozaki Sensei, any thoughts from you about your group sizes, what you actually teach and work with, and maybe what you think the ideal is?
Yeah, so so recently I only taught up to like 15 students for online teaching. So if I were in the situation, probably I just make the group size of the breakout room a little bigger, like instead of pair, but maybe like 3 or 4 people in the group. And if I have a budget or a person to hire, Maeda Sensei is hiring a TA, like facilitator is a great idea. It's very ideal, but it's kind of difficult to ask for another person to join. So yeah, but in a realistic yeah, problem probably just making the bigger group in a breakout room. So, well, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, you made a point that it can be challenging to ask for additional resources because, especially in education, our budgets are often very limited. So we have to make do with what we've got and do the best we can with what we have to work with. But thank you for that. I agree. It's a balance, right? We have to make sure that everybody's having an opportunity and space to talk. But at the same time, if the groups are too small, then it's maybe too much and too overwhelming for our students. I noticed in the
Oh,
chat, go ahead.
oh yeah, or includes the outside classroom activity as well. Or just think about the activities that bigger group can work on effectively. And just added some information.
Agreed. Definitely, we want to think about the nature of what we're having our students work on whenever we're doing work with them synchronously. Some activities will be fine for larger groups, but other ones, we really need a smaller group. Definitely important to think about. I noticed in the chat, we have someone who has 40 to 59 per session, which is quite a lot. Rowdy but fun. I can definitely see that. And yeah, again, if we, if you're working for a state university, obviously your budget is going to be more limited. So it is really important to make sure that we can be adaptable and work with the circumstances we have to work with. Really good stuff. Just browsing the chat quickly. Here's a question about recording and uploading live classes, asking if we record and upload them, which that's a good point. Asking about having this available for students. We want to make sure that everyone has a chance to access these. So I'm just curious to know if you archive your sessions and put those online, or if you don't do that, maybe as a way to motivate the students to come to the live sessions. Nozaki Sensei, maybe you could share a bit with us about whether or not you archive and post those sessions online.
Yeah, archiving is also a great idea. But I just came up with one thought is that some student doesn't want to be recorded. So usually when we do a recording session and some kind of those work, yeah, we usually ask them to submit like permission or permission to publish a recording and so on. So, but I think it's still a good idea for everyone to see it after the class.
You made a good point about privacy and having things like name and likeness on the internet, and that is something that we need to be a little bit sensitive about. So that's a good idea is to ask students for permission rather than just doing it unilaterally. Thank you for that. Maeda Sensei, maybe you can share a little bit with us your philosophy on recording sessions and posting them for students to review afterward.
Oh, it's a great idea, but at the same time, if I do that, some student might not come to the class, and oh yeah, they're gonna be always recordings. Then also the privacy issues. So I share the class slide. So I share that one in advance so that some students they can take a look at it. Okay, so tomorrow's synchronous session, we're going to talk about our, favorite, weekend activities. So I don't know these vocab, so I can prepare and oh, this is what we are doing. So, that way they can prepare, and those who miss the class, unfortunately, they know that it's always there. So even though they didn't come to the class, they can always go back to the slides and then they can review or they can study, and if they still have questions they can call me, well, they contact me, but I don't usually don't record it, share that one, share the slides, yeah. Share the recording, yeah.
I like that idea because, as you said, students will kind of know what to expect going into the session. So if they're very nervous, if they're socially anxious, they can preview and come prepared, which we want anyway. We want students to be able to come prepared and interact with us. You mentioned the students who are just not going to come because they can sit and watch the archive. And I completely hear you on that. The other drawback for me personally is that if they're sitting and watching, they're not speaking with us, and we can't give them feedback because they're passively watching this recording at home somewhere that we can't reach them. So there's a lot to think about, a lot of pros, but also a lot of cons. Thank you for that. And Kobuke Sensei, curious to know your thoughts on archiving live sessions and posting them online.
I'm similar to Maeda Sensei. I don't, when I teach synchronously, I don't post the class video, but I do post the Nearpod slides that they can go in and see and interact with. And the same thing. If we post all of the videos, I'm pretty sure a lot of the students will tend not to show up for the class, for the synchronous class.
Especially when there are other things that can be done, like watching Netflix. I completely understand. Bostwick Sensei, maybe you could tell us a little bit about NCVPS's philosophy on recorded and archive sessions, please.
Sure. For us, what we do is we do require those live sessions. We use those recordings to offer students a chance to review the material that we covered, but it typically is not offered for full credit for missing that live session. We only do so if a student has maybe a prolonged medical absence, that they have been out of school for a few weeks, and there's no chance for them to make up those missed sessions when they've missed so many. Then we do offer the opportunity for them to kind of fast track going through some of those missed sessions by watching the archive. And then they do have to fill out a Google form to provide information about what they've learned from that session. And then they do have to provide an audio recording of them explaining or, using some of those vocabulary and grammar structures that we talked about are utilized in an audio recording to share with the teacher. So at least they're doing a little bit of language learning at the time and not 100% passive. But we do definitely prefer the live, synchronous live session participation rather than just getting the archive and using that for credit.
I really don't have anything to add to that. I think that was perfectly explained. It's just in the K-12 environment, especially, sometimes we really need that flexibility, and especially for students who might have IEP 504 accommodations. By law, we have to do that. So it gives us another opportunity to really level the playing field for those students who might need the accommodations. Thank you so much for that. I see one other question that came in. Do you have any data regarding how many universities in the US currently offer online Japanese classes? And then a follow-up, what trend now in the US universities are regarding moving in-person Japanese classes to online classes? Now, personally, I can't really speak to really either of these as I teach K-12, but I personally just anecdotally have noticed that more universities are starting to expand their horizons and offer some of the less commonly taught languages. It's fantastic to see. If any of our panelists want to chime in and address any of these questions, that would be fantastic. But if not, that's okay too.
I think the Japan Foundation, LA, usually conduct that type of survey. And I was also curious about the question too. What's the percentage of the, universities or institution offering online courses? But I think their data was conducted in the 2021. So it's right after the kind of COVID era. So it was kind of 40% online courses. It's really high, but it was because just after the COVID. So I'd love to see what is the trend now. But from my personal conversation with my colleague who is teaching at the community college in California, she said among her consortium, the community colleges started offering online options a lot because some of the students are working, so they really cannot come to the class. So that I heard the community college, they are offering lots of online courses. Yeah, maybe the Kobuke sensei, because you're teaching at the community college, you might want to add something too.
Yes, we have ever since COVID, uh, a lot of classes that are still being offered online rather than in person, and enrollment because of the need of the students, we're offering the online courses, not only languages but other courses as well.
And I think that's one of the things I love the most about having online learning in general is the fact that we are able to provide access to this content to those who otherwise would not be able to travel to a university or even a high school that offers Japanese. So it's just wonderful to have this option. I want to thank everyone so much for the, again, fantastic collaboration and conversation that we've had today. I do want to also point everyone's attention to the chat. Jim very graciously posted our panel 2 survey into the chat. If we could please ask everyone to take a few minutes out of your day to provide us that feedback, that does help us tremendously. And we want to make these presentations the best we can possibly make them. So your feedback is greatly appreciated and valued. And also, if you are interested in earning the badge, there are some activities to work on, Padlet activities, and that's posted all on our 2025 OLP website. So I wanted to point everyone's attention out there. But otherwise, I do want to thank everyone for your time today. We hope that you enjoyed the session just as much as I did. And we'll be back for our third and final session, and that will be at the same time that the presentation started today on Friday. So in roughly about 48 hours from when we started, we will have our third and final presentation. We look forward to seeing all of you then. Again, I want to thank everyone so much for being here. Thank you to all of our panelists for this fantastic conversation. And we will see all of you very soon. I wish you all a very warm mahalo and aloha.